Story 1. The Last Ride of Elisa Lam. January 31st, 2013. Los Angeles. The Cecil Hotel. A 19-story building on South Main Street with a history so dark that crime writers have called it the most haunted address in California. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, lived here in the 1980s. Jack Unterweger, the Austrian serial killer, stayed while actively murdering women across the city. 14 suicides, numerous murders. The Cecil doesn't just have a dark history, it is the dark history. A 21-year-old Canadian student named Elisa Lam checked in alone that night, traveling up the West Coast. Bright, loved, articulate. She ran a Tumblr called Enamored with Life. Her parents described her as the kind of person who brought energy into a room the moment she walked through the door. Nobody in that hotel knew she would never walk out. A year 19 days later, guests began complaining about the water. It tasted strange, dark, almost sweet in a way that water shouldn't be sweet. A maintenance worker climbed to the roof, crossed to the large tanks feeding the hotel's plumbing, and opened the first hatch. He found Elisa Lam's body inside. She had been in that tank for 19 days. Guests had been drinking, showering, brushing their teeth with water contaminated by a decomposing human body. The tank hatch latched from the outside. There was no way to get inside and close it from within. But before the tank, there's the elevator footage. This is the part that broke the internet. When LAPD released the last known footage of Elisa on February 14th, hoping the public could identify anyone who interacted with her, the response wasn't information. It was horror. And because what people watched in that grainy, delayed footage defied explanation. The elevator is small, institutional. Silver walls, emergency panel on the right. Early morning hours of February 1st. Elisa walks in wearing a red hoodie and dark shorts. She presses several buttons, not one or two, several, with urgent repetition. She steps back. The doors don't close. She walks to the edge. She leans far into the hallway, looking left, then right, like she's checking whether someone is following her. Then back inside. Then out again. She flattens herself against the left wall, pressing into the corner like she's trying to disappear into the metal. She raises her hands and begins moving them in a slow, fluid, dreamlike motion, fingers spreading and contracting, like she's having a conversation with something invisible. The doors still haven't closed. She walks back into the hallway, moves left, and then she's gone. The camera holds on the empty corridor, and then finally the doors close. Closed by nobody. After she left. Investigators spent months on this footage. They measured timestamp irregularities. The footage appeared to loop in a way suggesting a segment had been removed. LAPD attributed this to standard security compression. Critics found that answer insufficient. The hand movements became the most dissected element. Medical professionals suggested a manic episode. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, known to occasionally skip medication when she felt stable. Others, including clinicians who reviewed the footage, disagreed. They said the movements were too slow, too deliberate, too synchronized, and like she was responding to something. Others said she looked like she was hiding from something she couldn't see but could absolutely feel. Here's what has never been satisfactorily explained. The Cecil's elevator doors operated on a motion sensor system. If something was in the path of the doors, they wouldn't close. The The doors refused to close the entire time Elisa was present, and closed the moment she left. LAPD said the elevator was malfunctioning. Convenient. Because a malfunctioning elevator that refuses to close poses no obvious threat to a lone traveler in the early morning hours. And yet she vanished. The rooftop access door was alarmed, supposed to trigger a loud alert if opened. No alarm was reported on the night of February 1st. No staff responded. Hotel management maintained the alarm was functional. This was never reconciled in the official investigation. The elevator footage came from a system the hotel admitted was malfunctioning. We are watching broken evidence, trying to read a story where every third word has been removed. Elisa had no drugs in her system beyond therapeutic levels of her prescribed medications. No alcohol, no defensive wounds, no signs of violence. The coroner ruled accidental drowning, bipolar disorder listed as a significant contributing condition. What she had was 19 days in a water tank on the roof of a building where at least 14 people chose to die, where serial killers once slept, where the water ran dark through pipes that climbed 13 floors before reaching guests who turned on the faucet each morning without thinking about what those pipes might remember. The Cecil is now rebranded as Stay on Main. The tanks are still up there. Story 2. The doors that should not have closed. The death of Dr. Nikaido. Some horror doesn't need a ghost. Some horror is mechanical, indifferent, the kind that happens not because evil reached out for you, but because the machinery you trusted every single day decided to show you what it actually is. August 16th, 2003. Christus St. Joseph Hospital, Houston, Texas. Dr. Hitoshi Christopher Nikaido was 35 years old, a surgical resident, careful, intelligent, dedicated. He had trained for years to reach this point. He was on the cusp of a career that would save lives. He walked toward an elevator. The doors were open. He stepped in. The doors closed on him, not after he entered, while he was crossing the threshold. The doors slammed shut on his head and shoulders, and the elevator car began moving upward. The shaft did what elevator shafts do. It didn't know there was a man in its doors. The physics were immediate and catastrophic. Dr. Nikaido's head was sheared from his body. His body fell backward into the hallway. A nursing assistant named Minnie Hardy was inside the elevator when this happened. She was trapped in the moving car with what had just fallen in front of her. She was in there for some time before anyone could stop the elevator and open the doors. Sit with what that means. Not just the horror of Dr. Nikaido's death. Sit with being Minnie Hardy, stepping into an elevator for a routine 30-second ride in the hospital where you work, and having that elevator become something else entirely. Trapped in a moving metal box with the evidence of mechanical catastrophe directly in front of you. No ability to stop it, no way out. Nothing to do but wait until the machinery decided to let you go. She suffered severe psychological trauma, which is the most profound understatement possible. The investigation found that the safety sensors designed to detect obstructions in the doorway had failed. These sensors are the single most critical safety feature in any elevator. They're designed with redundancy. They are designed to fail safe. They did not fail safe for Dr. Nikaido. What emerged through legal proceedings? Employees had reportedly complained about that specific elevator before August 16th. Documented reports of doors behaving erratically, closing too quickly, not responding to obstructions. Some staff had developed a habit of being cautious around that particular car. The hospital settled a wrongful death lawsuit, terms confidential. Schindler, the elevator manufacturer, also faced legal action. Specific findings were sealed. What we know? A 35-year-old surgeon died because the mechanism designed to prevent doors from closing on a human body failed at the exact moment it was needed. What we cannot know? How long that mechanism had been degrading. How many times before August 16th the sensors had flickered and almost failed before barely staying open. How many near misses preceded the one that wasn't? We step into elevators hundreds of times a year. We never think about the doors. We never wonder whether today is the day the sensors decide not to work. We trust them completely, without a second thought, and that trust is built on maintenance records and inspection schedules and regulatory compliance. All of it failed Dr. Nikaido on a Saturday afternoon in Houston. In the aftermath, OSHA and Texas elevator regulators reviewed safety requirements statewide. Hospitals were flagged for audit. Sensor redundancy regulations were tightened across multiple states, partly in response to what happened here. These changes happen because people die. The rules that protect the next person are written in the life of the person who came before. Dr. Nikaido may have saved lives he will never know about in hospitals where his name will never be spoken, behind doors that hold open because a sensor was doubled and redoubled because someone decided Houston could not happen again. That doesn't make it better, but it makes it matter. The elevator was decommissioned. I don't know what happened to the specific car, whether it was dismantled or whether some component of that machine is now in a different elevator in a different building, carrying people between floors every day. Machinery doesn't remember. That's both the horror and the mercy. But we do. Story 3, 41 hours. The man who disappeared inside the machine. This one doesn't have a body or a ghost or a sensor failure. What it has might be worse. 41 hours alone in a small metal box, and the psychological record of what happens to a human mind when every system it relies on fails completely and nobody notices you're gone. Nicholas White was 34 years old. He worked for Business Week magazine in New York City. On a Friday evening in October 1999, IT left his office on the 43rd floor of the McGraw-Hill building in Midtown Manhattan to step outside for a cigarette. Around 11 p.m. colleagues still working. Building occupied, cleaning crews, security, the workers who keep a skyscraper running after hours. He finished his cigarette, went back inside, stepped into a service elevator to return to his floor. The elevator stopped. The doors didn't open. Nothing else happened. He pressed the emergency button. An alarm sounded. He could hear it, but nobody responded. The intercom rang and rang. The emergency phone, no answer. He pushed against the doors with his full weight. He called out. He screamed. Nothing. Security guards walked through the lobby below. Cleaning crews moved through floors above and below. The building was never fully empty that weekend. Nobody checked the elevator system alerts. Nobody noticed a service elevator had been stationary for an extraordinary length of time. Saturday came. No working cell signal inside a service elevator shaft. He had cigarettes and a lighter. No food, no water. A fluorescent metal room the size of a large closet, suspended between floors in one of the most populated cities in the world. He rationed his cigarettes. He slept on the floor, woke with no sense of time. The fluorescent light never changed. He talked to himself. He stopped talking. He paced. 3 steps turn, 3 steps turn, until pacing stopped feeling like movement and started feeling like madness. The security footage recorded him moving through identifiable stages, alert and active for the first several hours, pressing buttons, trying every communication option, then agitation, pacing, stopping, pacing. Then something shifted. He sat on the floor. He lay down. By the later hours, the footage shows a man who has largely stopped trying, not because he gave up, because the mind, facing a situation with no actionable solutions, stops spending energy on things that produce no results. It's adaptive. But watching it on security footage, watching a person go still in a metal box, it looks like surrender. Saturday passed. Saturday night passed. Sunday morning, a security guard finally identified that the service elevator hadn't moved in an extraordinarily long time. The alarm triggered Friday had apparently been heard and dismissed. How 41 hours passed without anyone addressing it was never publicly resolved, and the building's management and security company faced legal action. White sued and reached a settlement. When the doors opened, Nicholas White had been inside for 41 hours. 1 full rotation of the earth. No food. Barely any sleep. He walked out and his life began falling apart in ways he has described with brutal honesty ever since. He couldn't return to work normally. Severe anxiety developed, not just about elevators, but about enclosed spaces, about infrastructure, about what happens when the systems of daily life reveal their total indifference to individual human survival. His marriage ended. His career stalled. He has described the experience not as a trauma he processed and moved past, but as a line drawn in time, a before and an after that never fully reconciled. "Nichen, you expect the world to notice when you're gone," he has said. "When you learn it, absolutely doesn't have to. Something about how you understand your place in things changes permanently." This is the specific horror of Nicholas White's story. Not the physical danger, though 41 hours without water is serious and could have turned fatal. The horror is the existential revelation. The thing the elevator taught him that he couldn't unlearn. In a city of 8 million people, in a 51-story building in Midtown Manhattan, in a building where he worked, where his colleagues sat 43 floors above him, he disappeared. Completely, cosmically invisible. The city went about its weekend. People ate and slept and watched Saturday morning television. The building hummed around him. His colleagues assumed he'd gone home. It was a Friday night, and people leave without saying goodbye. The weekend came. If anyone noticed his absence Saturday, they assumed he was sick. He fell through the gap between Friday night assumption and Monday morning worry, and he was found Sunday morning before concern had time to crystallize. One detail from the security footage that has stayed with everyone who's seen it. At one point, Nicholas White used his belt to try to pry open the elevator doors. Completely futile. Service elevator doors don't yield to leather. But what the footage captured was a man still trying, refusing in that moment to simply wait. He got the belt between the doors. He pulled. Nothing moved. He pulled again. The belt held. The doors held harder. He eventually sat back down on the floor. With that image, a man alone in a stopped elevator using his belt against steel in the dark hours of a Saturday he didn't know was passing, might be one of the most quietly devastating things ever caught on a security camera. No gore, no violence, no supernatural dread. Just a human being reduced to the most basic available action inside the structure modern civilization built to carry us safely between floors. He described how the light never changed, how time became genuinely unmeasurable, how the cigarettes mattered, then stopped mattering, and how the moment they stopped mattering was something he noticed and found frightening. He was found Sunday morning, dehydrated, exhausted, physically intact. The elevator hadn't broken his bones or burned him or dropped him. It had simply held him in the dark and taught him what it means to be forgotten inside a machine. The McGraw-Hill building is still there. The elevators still run. Thousands of people ride them every day, phones out the moment the doors close, not thinking about the cable above or the shaft below or any of it. The way you can only not think about something if you've never been given a reason to. Nicholas White thinks about it. He will always think about it. And now, so will you.